Oh yeah, let's start. And yeah, thank you for everybody that showed up and decided to be here online with us right now. I know it's a incredible busy time. I mean, exams are coming up, assignments, essays and whatnot. So thank you everyone for being here right now. And hopefully, our objective here is for you guys to squeeze out, the most valuable information you guys can get out of this podcast and hopefully apply it to the real world and hopefully, you guys can use the information and essentially, get internships or future full-time employment later down the line. So we hope you guys can make the most out of this podcast. All right, Sean, let's start. So, sort of an introduction and background. Can you walk us through your journey into computer science and what essentially drew you into the field?
Yeah, for sure. So before I get into it, I'll just give a quick introduction about who I am and what I do at UofT. So, hey everyone, my name is Ishan, and I'm currently on my PY year, and I go to UTM. I'm currently doing a computer science specialist. So that is my program. And as for some of the background and how I got into computer science, so initially in high school, I was interested in lots of aerospace and astronomy, so that's where my focus was. But in my grade 11 summer, I landed an internship with RBC. So that was a software development internship. And that's sort of the main reason why my interest sort of shifted to software development. And the main attraction point for software development to me was the problem solving aspect. So during my time at RBC, we were given these business challenges, and converting them into solutions was the attraction that I got from the field of software development. And computer science and programming was just a way to sort of solve these problems. So that's how I got into computer science and ended up at UofT.
Nice. And what made you choose U of T out of all the universities in Ontario or America or worldwide?
Yeah, so it was definitely the best school in our area. So it was close by, definitely a huge positive for me. I personally preferred staying close to my house. So that was a big plus for me. And also the scholarships offered by the university were a big motivation to join as well.
Got it. And how has your university experience so far shaped your career?
Yeah. So the PEY portal has helped me land a couple of internships. So the current one I'm doing right now, and last summer when I worked at Ericsson. So one thing I would say is the PEY job board is not as bad as they say. So there's definitely some good companies on there, and you keep sure make you keep applying.
Got it. And do you feel like your university name helped out at all? Because I know U of T is a big brand name out there in, the corporate world. So do you think that helped out at all or no?
Yeah, for sure. So I definitely ask these questions once my term, co-op term ends to my managers, like when they hired me, what did they think? What was the main factors? And I can talk about Ericsson, where I asked my manager this question, and they said that they primarily hire from UFT because they know that there's a certain standard that these students will have, and like our coursework teaches us in a specific way. So definitely the UFT name does help. And even at Arctic Wolf, the current company I'm at, they only hire from Waterloo and UFT. So that is again a big sign that the name does help.
I see. Okay, that's nice. And now I do sort of want to nitpick into your career and see how everything sort of built up into, what you are now. I see that you were a research assistant in 2019, I believe. Can you sort of like tell us more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So summer of 2019 was the summer of grade 10 for me. So that's when I did this research assistant position. Just a bit of background as to how I got into this position. So in high school, I did a lot of volunteering, and part of the reason I did all this volunteering was to network and meet with different people from different fields. And like I said, my interests were more geared toward astronomy. So that's where I spent most of my time doing more networking and research. So with all these volunteering opportunities, one of the sponsors for these volunteer organizations was UFT. So I got had the chance to meet several people, several professors, and one of them was able to offer me a summer research position. The professor's name was Dr. Michael Reed. So he's a professor at Dunlap. UofT downtown. And it was a really interesting experience for me because I was the only high school student working with all these professors and PhD students. But it was overall a great learning experience because I got the chance to work with large data sets. So the challenge we were facing, the task I was working on, was that we were building an analysis tool for data coming in from the ASCAP telescope. And that's a telescope in Australia. And we all the data was coming in. It was constantly collecting data. And and reviewing the data manually is just a lot of cumbersome work. So we were building out a tool for that. And that was one part of the internship. And the second part was uh, diving into some of the interesting stars or celestial objects that these analysis tools alert us to. So these tools don't do all the analysis. The astronomers still have to do some work. And that was the second part of my role. And the main thing that helped me that I got out of this experience was networking. Number one, I'll focus on that a lot during our talk. So networking is definitely one of the things, the biggest things. And the second thing is I got to develop some skills in terms of programming. So Python was the primary language that we used. And I also had the chance to work with some of the code bases that they have. So working with a team and contributing to the overall code base.
Nice, nice. And then after your research assistant role, you worked at RBC for a bit, 3 times, I believe.
Mhm.
So how did you get into RBC?
Yeah. So again, I did a lot of volunteering in high school, and another place I volunteered at, the sponsor was RBC. And during one of the sponsor events that they hosted, I had the chance to meet with an RBC recruiter, and they introduced me to a new high school program that they were starting up. So it was called RBC Summer Tech Labs. I believe that the program is still going on. So we were the pilot batch for that program. So that was definitely a good learning experience. As for the application process for that, I don't remember exactly, but I think there was a technical round and then two interview rounds after. And the technical problem from where I'm sitting right now, it was easy, but back then it was not as easy. I think it was a stack related question. So definitely some data structures involved, even in a high school sort of role position. And the interview rounds were with the recruiter and the team.
Nice. And I think later down the line, you worked at Ericsson and Arctic Wolf. Can you just briefly go over how you got into those roles?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I said before, the PY portal does have a lot of good companies on there. So make sure to sort of explore the companies and make sure you do your research. So both of those, Ericsson and Arctic Wolf, I landed through the PY portal. And the most important thing with that was to not say yes to the first offer you get. So there's some big companies on there like Intel, AMD, but it's not necessarily the name of the company that matters. You have to ask the right questions during the interviews to figure out what sort of learning you'll be getting out of the experience. Because at this stage, the learning matters a lot more than having a big company name on your resume. So that's definitely one advice that I would give.
Got it. I mean, I was like gonna ask you like any advice for anyone in PEY because I believe we might have some students here in PEY or planning to go into PEY. But and you kind of did say don't go for the big companies or just go for the big companies. Look at, the quality of the companies, ask the right questions and make sure the learning experience goes well. Is there any other tips that you might have for anyone?
Yeah, for sure. So there's definitely a recruiter mentioned on some of the applications. Reaching out to them is a really good strategy. So at my current role, the recruiter actually reached out to like the co-op batch and they were asking us for referrals if we had any. So the recruiters are always looking out for referrals from anyone they know because it just gives them sort of social proof and just backing from anyone. So reaching out to recruiters, networking, are definitely on the top two things I would say you should do.
Got it. And what was Stealth Mode about? Was that like a startup or what was that?
Yeah, it was just a small app we made with a couple of friends. It didn't make any money, so we never got around to deploying it either. So that was just something fun we did on the side when we were in school. So nothing full time.
Got it. And I'm assuming like you kind of did that for the learning experience or like a side project or something.
Yeah, for sure. That was definitely the main reason we did it. So uh, the project itself was using AI agents, and it was a way we got into sort of exploring the ChatGPT API, and so it was essentially just a ChatGPT wrapper, but we were building it when it originally came out, so there weren't that many AI agents around to learn from, so we sort of took it on our own and started to explore this.
That's cool. That's cool. And has stealth mode helped you out at all in your roles right now or no?
The current roles I'm working in are not AI related, so it hasn't directly applied, but it's definitely a skill I talk about on my resume, and it's a learning experience that I got to have.
Got it. Got it. Now, I do want to step into your internships and co-ops. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, what was the biggest difference between working at RBC, Ericsson, and Arctic Wolf?
Yeah, for sure. So the RBC experience was throughout my high school years, and the program itself was geared towards these high school students. So the work environment was a lot more relaxed and fun. The goal of this program was to help high school students get their foot in the door. So it wasn't necessarily doing solving like complex problems on for their business. It was just mostly working on internal tools, but overall the experience that they built out was to help high school students get familiar with large code bases, contributing in teams, working with GitHub. So once you have multiple team members contributing, you'll have Git merge conflicts, how to resolve those, and just these small things that you learn on the job. So that was the goal of the program. And they also had a lot of opportunity for us to meet the executive leadership, which I didn't really find in some of the other companies I worked at. So RBC was definitely focused on making sure that we have access to a lot of people, we can talk to a lot of people, and that's what the experience was about. Now, moving on to Ericsson, that was a completely different shift in terms of the work environment and the type of work that I was doing. It was a really fast-paced work environment for the team because the team I was working on was working on a contract project from Bell. And the first, I would say, 2 or 3 weeks were purely theoretical learning. Ericsson, for context, is a networking company. So they work on networks like the 5G network or even coming on the 6G network. So the learning I was doing was about these network systems. So CSC 358, CSC 209. I would say most of the content that was sort of being explained to me is covered in CSC 358 in a lot of detail. So I personally haven't taken that course yet, but from the friends I've talked to, that is exactly the content that they taught me. And at Ericsson, I found that for co-ops, there is a bit of red tape when working on projects. So what that means is uh, the tasks I got to work on were sort of limited because since it was a third-party project that I was working on, so there was a lot of confidential information and uh, a lot of technicalities in order to help me contribute to that. So that is something I noticed about Ericsson. And right now, currently, I'm working at Arctic Wolf, and Arctic Wolf is a cybersecurity company. We provide end-to-end cybersecurity solutions to companies. And the team I am working on right now is the data ingestion team. So we own a lot of services, and all those services gather data from our clients, and we gather all the events happening on the computers so that we can pass it on so they can be analyzed for any threats or any incidents that are happening. And there's a lot of learning involved in my current role as well because I haven't worked in cybersecurity before. So it is definitely a great place to learn. Most of the code itself is in Python and Go. And like we use a lot of cloud services, primarily AWS, Kubernetes, so things like that. I believe those are taught in CSC 409. So that's a course that would help with a role such as mine. And since this is the longest internship I've had, I feel like I've had a much better opportunity to delve deeper into the projects I'm working on. So in the past, all my internships were 4 months. And I feel like at the end of the 4 months, when you are comfortable working with the team you have, with the projects you have, it's almost time to leave. But then right now, I'm 6 months in to my current internship, and I have an understanding of what the projects are, so I can contribute more meaningfully, take on bigger challenges, and get a better learning experience because I've known the people I've worked with for 6 months now. So I've built a sort of relationship with them, and just the projects itself, I know the sort of ins and outs of the projects, and it takes me less time to complete a task even. And in terms of the red tape I mentioned at Ericsson, I don't see any of that at Arctic Wolf. So we are free to work on any project, any task. Even my manager has now allowed me to work on some of the more complex tasks, and that's been a really rewarding experience.
Nice. And I'm gonna ask you a big question now, a question I think that everybody wants the answer to. What advice would you have for students that are looking to land their first internship, and people especially, with no experience? If there's like a sort of guideline you can give them, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. So the number one thing I would say is find as many networking opportunities as possible because that is how I got my foot in the door. So the high school volunteer thing was just a way for me to meet new people, and my UofT experience, my RBC experience, the way I got my foot in the door was through talking to all these people, talking to recruiters, or talking to professors and so on. So the way you should sort of approach this is not to just go up and ask them, "Oh, can I have an internship here?" It's to be genuinely curious. So for the UFT experience, I was genuinely interested in learning more about astronomy. So I sort of approach it with that mindset, and the other person should see that you are genuinely interested, and then you can take the conversation from there. But just reaching out up front is not the way I would recommend you go. And if you can find these sort of in-person opportunities, LinkedIn is also a good place. Like uh, I was reaching out to several of my recruiters, like I mentioned, on the PEI job board, and even there's career fairs happening at our university. Even if the career fair themselves don't lead to a job opportunity, you can always follow the recruiter themselves on LinkedIn because they keep posting job opportunities, and you'll just get a notification when there's a new job opening happening. So you won't miss out on the next round. So that's a great way to go about it. And once you've sort of built this relationship with the person you're talking to, you can always ask them for a referral. So that's the way I would go about it. And I guess I'll give one more here. Suggestion. Hackathons are a great place to meet potential employers because there's so many sponsors. So I'll give a direct example. I was at MedHacks. That's the TMU hackathon, and their Cohere was a sponsor. Cohere is an ML-based company based out of Toronto, and they had around 10 students for their summer co-op program in that hackathon, and two of them were my team members. So hackathons definitely help in helping landing these internships.
Got it, got it. And
Yeah,
you sort of did answer it, but how can students stand out in such a competitive, dense job market? Like, is it networking? Is it projects? Is it schoolwork? Is it the school name? Is it skills? Like, what is it?
yeah, for sure. So I'll sort of pick up where I left off by talking more about hackathons. I feel like hackathons are a great place to build out something interesting and put it on your resume because when you're working on projects on your own, on your personal time to put on your resume, you're not as committed because I've personally seen that a lot of people start these projects and they just let it sit there, they don't deploy it, and never really get around to finishing it. So with hackathons, you have the chance, A, to learn something new, and B, to actually deploy it and have a full presentation at the end. So these projects that you build out at hackathons are really great, are really great projects that you can put on your resume and as a way to stand out because you have the chance to work on new technologies that in a safe environment. So there is no cost to failing at this point. And I would say that you mentioned that experience could be a sort of deciding factor in when you're applying to these jobs. So I do believe experience is really important because recruiters do look for that. But when you have no experience, getting experience is hard. So it's sort of a never-ending paradox. But the suggestion I have for you there is, again, going back to projects, or you could focus on things that are a bit more achievable. So I think one step lower than internships. So what I did in my second year was the GDSC computer science implementation projects. And I put that on my resume as well because the first was the project we built out. It was a fully fleshed out project. We spent 4 months working on it. So we built out several features, it was deployed, and I got to work in a team. So those are the things that you talk about when you have an experience. So you can get the same level of detail and experience from these things. So even research projects with professors, you work in a team, you build out a project, you work on something new, and that's just the things employers want to see. So that's a suggestion I would have.
Got it. And now I want to move on to the next topic, technical skills and projects. You've worked with AI, AR, big data, cybersecurity, and I was wondering, how did you get into all these fields? Like, what did you do, and how did you build the skills to get into these
Yeah,
fields?
for sure. So the first thing I would say is uh, when choosing internships or co-ops, decide what you want to do, right? So it's a really personal decision that you have to take, whether you want to explore different things or continue in the same space. So I worked at RBC where I learned different things. I worked at Ericsson where I learned sort of networks. And now I'm working with at my current role, working with big data and cybersecurity. So uh, when choosing internships, you sort of have to make the decision as to what sort of domain you want to focus on or whether you want to cherry pick from multiple fields. And I've personally found that cherry picking is definitely the way I would like to go because learning new things is super fun. And the second point I would like to bring up is hackathons again. Big advocate for hackathons. It's a safe space for you to try out new things with nothing at stake. So that you could fail, your project could not work, and it's okay. You just learned something new. You spent 2 or 3 days working with passionate people who want to build out something with a new technology. And you really have the chance to pick these teammates in hackathons. So you could choose people that have the same interests as you, or you could choose people who have experience in certain fields and you can learn from them. So again, hackathons are definitely the way to go about learning these new skills. That's how I learned skills in AR, augmented reality, and AI as well.
Got it. So what I'm getting out of all of this is that cherry picking your field is important. Obviously doing hackathons and having the passion and love for the learning experience and overall the game of everything.
Yeah, you got it.
Got it. And then how do you approach, or what's your sort of approach to learning all these new technologies and skills? Is there like a fast way that you have, or is it just you have to learn it the tough way, the long way?
Yeah, so there's a twofold answer to this. So one is on the job. On the job, you have mentors, you have senior developers, and once you start the job, like in the first week or two, you'll be super confused. And I personally have felt this, and you may think you're super annoying when you're asking all these questions, but the mentors and senior devs, they train so many new hires, so they sort of expect these questions. So it's really important to not feel that you're annoying. And it took me some time to realize this. Keep asking those questions, and it's really important to learn to ask good questions rather than things you can figure out yourself. So if something's one Google search away, that's not a good question to ask your senior dev. That turns into like the annoying territory, but you have to learn to ask some of the questions in a way that you're learning and getting value out of the answer as well.
Got
Now
it.
for the second, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, you can continue.
Yeah, so that's for the job, right? But then the second part is during hackathons or personal time, if you want to learn something new, how would you go about that? And for that, personally, I found just working with things and breaking things along the way has worked best for me. So at hackathons, let's say you choose a new technology, you would sort of tweak things and play around. What does changing this do? And just keep tweaking things around and breaking them until they sort of until you learn the ropes. And again, in hackathons, you could sort of talk to mentors. They are the senior developers in hackathons, right? And I don't see people using mentors as much in these hackathons, which is something I would like to encourage a bit more. But yeah, that is how I would go about it.
Nice, nice. And I absolutely agree with your point on mentors. I think mentors are underutilized, incredibly important. They can advance your career in many ways. So yeah, I mean, I'd recommend anyone getting a mentor from anywhere. It's definitely beneficial. And I sort of want to ask, is there any technical skills that you think people should like definitely learn today? Like 100% like, no questions asked?
Yeah. I mean, AI is one of them, right? So not just using AI, but building with AI. So using it as a tool to build new things. Hackathons, again, you could go and build out AI agents. AI agents are a big thing happening right now. So I would really focus on these AI skills. And on a lighter note, I'm sure you guys have seen like the memes about AI making these vibe apps and all those cybersecurity flaws. So again, cybersecurity is definitely one of the areas I would recommend you getting into. CSC 347, I believe, is the course for the introduction to cybersecurity. I would definitely recommend that. There's a lot of advancements happening in this field. Cyber attacks are on the rise. So cybersecurity and AI are on my personal radar.
Nice, nice. And have you ever like made any side projects? I know stealth mode was one, but like anything else outside of that or no?
Side projects. I mean, I could talk about one of my hackathon projects.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the projects I worked on at UofT Hacks, which won third place, was using a machine learning model to uh, sort of control self-doubt and provide more guidance when working out at the gym. So it was a live auditory and visual feedback graph that you could place your camera and it would sort of give you guidance about the exercises you're performing. And the goal here was to encourage more people to take on the fitness journey because starting off at the gym can be daunting. So that's one of the problems that we decided to tackle. And the success factor here was the storytelling at the hackathon. So what got us third place was not the idea itself, not the execution, not how nice it looked, but the way we told the story and how the impact, what the impact it would make on the customer. So at these hackathons, once you start talking about your project in the way of the real world impact, that's what the judges really like.
I see. Okay. And do you feel like these projects help out at all in the workforce or no? Because I've seen like, the old argument where people on the internet are like, no, it doesn't help out, but some people are like, yes, it does help out. So like what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, for sure. So if you don't really have experiences to put on your resume, I think these projects are a good way to highlight the skills that you have. And I can talk about this more, but on your resume, you have the skills section where you list out all the skills you have. But it's really effective if you talk about those skills in your experiences or your projects. So in your skill section, you could put Python and Java, like all these languages, but you really have to show that you use those skills and you know how to apply them. So side projects are a good way of showing that. And the second thing they're good for is showing that you can work in a team and work with a group of people to deliver a project or a really good outcome.
Got it. And we do have a question from the chat. It's asking, is it true
Yeah.
that going to the gym as a CS student helps you think? I'm gonna leave the questions at the end. We do have a live Q&A, but I'm gonna just say, I think, exercising and keeping a healthy diet is going to help you think and perform the best you can. So yeah, That's
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to go on to the next topic, which is career mindset, resume, interview, and soft skills. I think this is like by far the most underrated aspect of, just getting into the workforce, building your career. And, not many people talk about it. So I'm going to ask you a pretty convoluted question. What's something you wish, if you could time travel back to first or second year, what would you do differently?
So in first year, I think I was stressing really about everything and knowing everything. And that's something you can do less of for sure, looking back as a retrospective. So you don't have to know everything and you don't have to stress about everything. And the one thing that I would do more of is take more fun courses. And when I say fun courses, I don't really mean like take bird courses that are easy. You could do that, but some of the courses that I took in first year were like astronomy and physics. And physics is not really considered a bird course, but I definitely enjoyed my time there. So that is something I would recommend. Take more fun courses and things that you enjoy to do. Yeah, I mean, you're in computer science, you like computer science, but do try to explore outside of your realm because there's some really good courses out there. And that's just really dependent on you as a person, what you want to explore further.
Got it. And yeah, I do agree with your point on taking fun courses. Like you never know what you might find fun or what you might be passionate about, and it can always translate into, your career.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with self-doubt and, high stress environments? Because I know people do panic under pressure and whatnot. So how do you sort of keep yourself under control?
Yeah. So for me, the thing that works best is changing the time scale. So like thinking about how much will this matter in 10 years. So if you have one assignment due, which is worth 10% of your mark, in 10 years, how much will this matter? But this question really only works in certain scenarios, right? Like you can't think about it this way with your entire degree. So second question I'd usually ask myself is, does this make for a good story? Like I made it through this much stress, then I can do this other thing really easily. So if I'm taking six courses and I make it through this, that's a really good story to tell myself because if I'm taking four courses and struggling with it, I could remind myself, hey, I took six courses that time and I made it through that. So, these four courses are easy to get through.
Nice, nice. And yeah, absolutely. I think experience builds mental fortitude. And it's like
Yeah.
the old quote, tough times creates tough people and tough people create good times and so on and so forth. Everybody's heard that. So yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you on that. Are there any non-technical skills that you feel like helped you succeed in, all of your jobs or projects and whatnot?
Yeah, so I've talked about this before. I'll highlight this again. Communication is really important. Learning to ask the right questions. You don't just want to ask questions for the sake of asking questions. Like even at the end of interviews, they ask you, "Do you have any questions for us?" And they're just some boilerplate questions that people just end up asking. But that's not really the way to go. Asking the right questions is really, really important uh, for you as a person so that you can get value out of the answer. Asking surface level questions doesn't really force the other person to think as much. So ask questions that require a bit more thought so that the answer you get will be of more value. That's the first thing I would say. And the second one would be curiosity. Always, always, always poke around things, ask things why they are the way they are. Uh, at companies like big companies, RBC, Ericsson, uh, there's usually processes that are set up that they set up 10 years ago and no one has had the time or cared enough to look at them. But there's really a better way that came along. So I'll give you an example from my current role. We have a certain service and it really took a long time to build the service and no one really cared, like all of them had like high-end computers, like, but as an intern, I have one of the lower end models of like the Macs. So it took super long, annoyingly long to build on my like local computer. It turns out the solution was as simple as just caching some of the models to the memory so that you don't have to download them every single time. And that just it improved the life of so many people that they didn't even know they had a problem. So these small things you can notice and turn them into big wins.
Got it. That's a nice answer. And the next question I want to ask you is there a secret tip you have to excel at job interviews? Like any secret formula, any secret recipe? Because for me personally, like I know like the typical answers are like, know the job description, know the job and company in and out. Um, Obviously give a firm handshake, know your resume in and out, be there on time, and I can give you a million different, simple recipes that sort of work for job interviews. And for me, my secret formula for job interviews has been to dress well. I think if you dress well, the art of dressing well, it's super beneficial and nobody talks about it. If you in essence think about it, you walk into an interview, they're interviewing like what, like 50 to 100 people maybe, and it sort of helps you burn and stitch into people's minds faster. After the HR team interviews 50 people, they're going to be like, oh, who was that guy dressed in a nice suit? Or, who was that guy who's, dressed nice and elegantly? And that's literally how I got my first internship, I think. Literally, I came in with a suit, and the guy in my HR team, he said, it's a nice suit, and we talked about it for 10 minutes. And yeah, and I think that definitely helped out. So is there like a secret recipe that you have that you haven't told anybody? Or
Yeah, for sure. The dressing up idea is really nice as well. I should try that sometimes as well. That's a good tip. As for me, the thing I try to do before going into an interview is always being prepared. So even when you're going for like a test or an exam, like when you walk in prepared, you just go in with a different mindset because you sort of know that you can take on whatever is coming at you. And that's the same approach I tend to take with interviews. Just to walk in prepared. There's so many resources out there that sometimes you even know the exact questions that you'll be getting. I believe the website is called Glassdoor, and one of the companies I interviewed at, they asked the same question. I practiced from that website, so I really already knew what the interview is going to be about. So that just gives you a different level of confidence, and that is what everyone is looking for in, especially interviews are looking for in candidates, right? And the second thing I would like to highlight is asking questions that you really want to know at the end of the interview. So once the interview ends, you don't want to ask generic questions like, "Oh, when will the follow-up be?" or so on. You want to know that whether this company will give you the learning experience that will help you excel, like in general as a student or in your career even. You want to ask what the team works on, what sort of work will you be getting, and just sort of dissect the role before you just jump in and be like, yes, I want the role. You want to understand how much value this will bring to you before. And once you start asking these thoughtful questions, and the recruiters or the team members have to start thinking about them before giving you an answer, that's when they really know that you care and you genuinely want to make an impact and do some learning. And the last thing that has really helped me personally is reaching out to the interviewer after the interview. So for my current role at Arctic Wolf, initially after the interview, I was rejected, but I had reached out to the interviewer. So as soon as they had a new opening, she reached out to me. I was the first person she reached out to, and that was all because I reached out to her after the interview. I showed genuine interest, and always make sure to relate it back to something you talked during the interview, and that personal note really helps. Again, like you said with the dressing, helps them stitch you into their memory, right? So even in the future, if there's a new role opening, they remember you, and you are the first person they should reach out to. That should be the goal.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like your point, I think confidence and preparation go hand in hand. That's absolutely important, and yeah, presentation too, absolutely important. And you did kind of answer it. I was going to ask you, how do you prepare for technical interviews and non-technical?
Yeah, for sure. So for the technicals, I believe you just have to understand the basics. So starting from DSA, common algorithms, there's nothing really special you can do there other than practice. But the one thing that I realized a bit too late. So in first year, when I used to give interviews, I used to do all these practice questions for DSA and algorithms, but thing I didn't do was set up a timer for myself. So I used to do, let's say, 10 lead code problems, but then once the interview came, I couldn't really solve the questions. And the key there was to set up a timer for yourself and get better at it, you know? So start by giving yourself 1 hour to start with to solve one problem if it's a hard problem, and then do another hard problem, but give yourself 45 minutes. So you sort of want to time box yourself and simulate the pressure or stress environment that you are under during an interview, and that was really a game changer when for me personally when practicing for these technical interviews.
Got it, got it. And now I sort of want to dive into resumes. And before I actually ask you a question, I briefly want to go over the history of resumes because I think it's important we see how resumes have transformed into what they are today. So, like, if you go back into the concept of what a resume was, started off in what, 1482? I think they say Leonardo da Vinci was the first guy to ever give a resume and highlighting his job experiences. And then obviously resumes didn't become, a practical thing until the 20th century. I think in the 1950s, that's when they became popular and, they include some personal details and, it was just starting to be a thing where you would hand it in, you know, an employer would see your experience and whatnot. And it was pretty basic, nothing too um insane or complex about it. And until like the early 2000s, I think that's when you start to see, obviously these nice formatted, clean, um, coherently edited resumes. Obviously, there's like a million templates online that you can go over. And now I've started to see like a new change. I've seen people make websites, personal websites. People make like social media brands or, sort of like an influence page highlighting their experiences. LinkedIn, that's another one. And I want to ask, is there something new that you see people doing? And if not, what do you think people should sort of like make? Do you think a personal website would help out the most? Or work on the resume? Like what do you do now? Because like everything's just kind of transformed.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Things do evolve over time, and I think with this new with LinkedIn and all these websites, I think it's really become required now to have a LinkedIn page and a personal website. Before, I think these websites were only for people applying to graphic design roles or just some sort of like UI UX role. But now I feel like it's really required for even computer science students in general. And what it does is it just gives you online searchability and it gives you credibility. So on LinkedIn, I would recommend that you make sure you have more than 100 connections. This is a tip I got back when I was at RBC. Uh, the career development team there encouraged in high school, no one had LinkedIn. So they encouraged all of us to create LinkedIn and LinkedIn account and make sure to have 100 plus connections there. What it just adds an extra layer of social proof, especially if you have recommendations or endorsements from other people. It just validates that you do have these skills and you did a really good job. So that's why they leave the recommendation. And I would really recommend you guys endorse each other's posts or skills. Just ask your friends, just for the extra layer of credibility. And with LinkedIn, I would also suggest try to post once in a while. It doesn't have to be something super incredible that you did. Even if you completed a small project or if there's a milestone in your project, I would recommend you post that. I don't want you guys to become influencers. If you want to do that, go for it. But I would recommend like at least like once a year, you should try to post. Again, gives you some social proofs and yeah, ask for recommendations, endorsements, and give them out too. So don't just ask for it. Make sure if you work with someone and you really like working with them, give them a recommendation on LinkedIn, And to go back to your question about how resumes have changed over time, LinkedIn and personal websites, they're just complementing your resume. Your resume at this point shouldn't be longer than one page. If it is longer than one page, Personally, what I would do is just take off some projects or I remove some old work experiences. So LinkedIn is just complementing your resume as there's more space. So you could, add older experiences, or if you have 10 cool projects that you worked on, but you can't add 10 of them on your resume, a LinkedIn is the place for it. And your personal website is the place for it. And with your website, you can show your creativity. So like you mentioned, for resumes, there's online templates, there's these clean formats that you have to follow. You don't really have the creativity. So with the websites, you do have the space to be creative, to showcase, yeah, this is who I am, and you can showcase your personality there.
That's nice. That's nice. And is there like any resume tips that you can give us? Like, both like on the paper resume, a website, like any small tips, anything?
Yeah, for sure. So I did mention this slightly before, and now I'll go into a bit more detail. So on your resume, you have a skills section where I see people, they mostly just list out all the languages that they know. And in at UofT, we have all these courses. We know Python, Java, C. We just learn so many languages and we just list them in our skills. But I think the important thing is to talk about these skills in your experiences section. We're talking about them in your project section. And what this does, it shows proof that you just don't know the language. You can actually use it and apply it, and you have done it before. So again, the credibility part is really important. You want to give as much proof that you know what you're talking about, and you've done it before, so the recruiter would have more confidence while hiring you. Also, I believe you guys know this general tip. Make sure to measure the impact of what you're doing. What I like to do, even when I'm doing these co-ops, I have a note on the side, like a notepad note, or you could write it down, however you want to do it. Make sure to keep track of the things you're doing, because even during a 4-month term, you do so much. At the end, you go back to think, oh, what did I do that was meaningful? And you just can't really pinpoint some things, or you forget about it. So just having a note about the impacts that you made. So not the work that you did, but the impact that the work you did made. And as for like formatting the resume, I guess keep it simple. Interviews don't like complicated resumes. That's why the website aspect is now sort of becoming required, because that's where you can show your creativity. So yeah, keep the resume simple. And the one tip I have that that I do before at the end of making a resume is set my zoom from like Microsoft Word to 100%, or the default setting like that you have. That way you can see how much of your resume the recruiter sees at first glance. So at first glance, you want to see that what the recruiter is saying, and it shouldn't just be your education and skills. You should sort of organize your resume in a way that at first glance, the recruiter can see your experiences as well, so that they don't have to scroll to find out, oh, what your experiences or projects are. You want to give a good first impression.
Nice, nice. And yeah, I do agree with your point on first impressions. Is there like any other tips you can give? Like, let's say if you had to like, I know you did kind of answer it. Like, if you were to time travel back, let's say a fresh 18-year-old Ishan back into UTM first year, like, and let's say you had no experiences, nothing, like, completely empty-handed. What would you do from like the start to the beginning, from first year to fourth year, to make sure like you have a successful career coming out of university?
Yeah. So I believe the one thing I would come back to is hackathons and things that are as close to an internship as you can get. So like the GDSC, like community project thing. I don't remember the exact name for it. I think it's Community Implementation Project. So things like that, where you have the chance to work with a team, you build out a complete project. So if you don't really have experiences, projects are the way to start. So projects and and just taking on some research projects, even working with professors. So you want to do something that's out of your comfort zone. So projects themselves, yeah, you work with a team, but it's just really you and some people and you really want to set yourself in a different position than you're comfortable with. So I believe the research experience did really also help me get the RBC role uh, in the start because if you replace that with a project that I just do with friends, then you don't really have the extra push and the extra challenge because you're just working with people you're comfortable with. So uh, research projects are definitely something I would recommend in addition to going to hackathons, building projects, and so on.
Got it. So what I'm getting out of that is projects, then you move on to, research opportunities or whatnot,
Yeah,
hackathons, and then you get into the job force.
yeah,
So yeah, and I mean, universities have what a time span of about 4 to 5 years. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty solid advice. I mean, yeah, if you do those things, I mean, you should be able to stand out in such a competitive environment and hopefully get full-time employment.
yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next topic, which is okay, yeah, time for the Q&A. I did want to ask you one more question though before we jump into
yeah,
the Q&A.
yeah.
I know it's like sort of like a hot topic for everyone to get jobs and people complaining about not getting jobs and whatnot. And I did some research on this. It's something called the Great Career Change. It's like a concept where the older experienced people start to retire, and then the younger generation, like us, for example, we sort of step into the key roles. And it's sort of like the cycle that goes on in the job market. And essentially what that means is, if you have a great career change in a certain area, there will be a flow of, more job postings, more the younger generation like us going getting these jobs. And I did some research on this. Apparently, cybersecurity and IT are the two fields going through this right now. AI, not so much, but we do have, because it's like sort of like a new thing, you do have like the younger generation stepping into it. I want to ask you, have you personally seen that in your experience? And like, have you seen like more younger people getting jobs, more job openings for, obviously people our age, around their age?
So I can talk about my current company, and I did look into some of the demographics about from our company, and most of the people. Uh, so I'll start small. On my team, I'm the only co-op student there, and there's one team member who graduated university around 2 years ago, and all the other people are senior developers. So they're in their 40s or 50s. So I believe the great career change you're talking about might be a couple years out, but I'm talking just in the frame of my cybersecurity company. Uh, our company is not that big, so I don't believe that reflects the entire industry, but uh, I do believe that there are more job openings happening. There's more startups even, so there's more opportunities happening there. But yeah, I do agree that the great career change you talked about, but I think for our company especially, it's a couple of years out because all these senior developers, they were the ones who built out the base of these tools that we are using. So they are not close to retirement. Uh, in the industry, though, I do believe there are more job openings happening.
Got it. And let's say if like somebody, they were doing CS or whatnot, and they have like no idea what to do or what field to go into. And they're like, Ishan, I don't know what to do. Can you tell me or give me a certain field I should go into? Is there like a list of fields that you think people should go into? Fields with, maybe like a future, or, a mass amount of job openings that might happen in the future, like anything at all?
Yeah, for sure. Uh, I've personally, given my experience in like cybersecurity, that is definitely one of the things I would recommend people getting into because, again, the number of cyber threats is just increasing so fast that the need for cybersecurity people is just shooting up the roof. And again, like you mentioned, the career change happening. So that's one. And the second thing I would say is I was looking into this as well, a virtual reality and augmented reality. I think that is also having a bit of a comeback with the new like Meta glasses and all the investment Meta is making into this augmented reality field. I definitely believe that there is lots of scope and lots of development happening there. So those are the two recommendations I have.
Got it. Thank you so much. And yeah, we can take in live questions from the chat, or if you want to mute, um, feel free to. And since there's not that many people, you can make them personal. I don't mind. Any questions that you guys have in the chat, or if you want to unmute, just let me know. Ishan, I don't know if you can see the chat, but somebody asked, is it okay to develop resumes with the help of AI?
Yep, I would definitely recommend you do that. It's a really great way to sort of use the STAR method. I believe STAR method: situation, task, assignment, and how you did it, and then result. It can be really cumbersome to do all this yourself, so definitely use AI, but don't just ask it to do all the work for you. You really want to have an understanding of your own resume. You really need to know what you wrote. So I would use it as a tool and not just ask it to do all the work.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm gonna add on to that for a bit. I do agree on using it as a tool. And I think the common advice what people have given online is when you're applying for a bunch of jobs, obviously tailor your resume to the job description. And obviously, like nobody has time to, tailor every single thing. Like if you're giving in like 50, 60 applications, nobody has time to, tailor every resume word by word. And obviously, AI can like reduce that time frame. But yeah, obviously use it as a tool. Don't let AI just do all the work, make sure spelling, grammar, and the editing, the presentation of the resume looks fine. That's my small tip.
Awesome.
The other question, pretty long, if you want to read that through.
Yep. So, Isabella, I'm about to graduate, and I feel like I've missed a lot of time working on projects and gaining interesting experience. Want to create projects that will catch recruiters' attention. When doing a research project or something less common in the market, or a more standard team project to showcase my skills, such as a regular iOS app. And we have a comment from Andre. Bonus point if it actually solves a real problem in your life. Yep, I really like the tip that you gave. So it should, like I said with the hackathon story, like really marketing the talking about the story of the project. So if you really want to know how to sell the project more than if it looks super fancy, yeah, I mean, you should really build out. So the thing with projects is sometimes you start them and you don't really get around to deploying it, or midway through you lose interest. And that's something I would advise against. You could really do any project. There's no like specific project that really stands out to the recruiter, but having a deployed product at the end is what matters most. So instead of focusing on making it flashy and like super impressive from the start, first focus on getting like a bare bones project and getting it to and deploy it, So that's something you can put on your resume. And yeah, you can make it flashy afterwards. You can keep adding features, you can make it look nice, but the really important thing is to complete a project, and it should really solve a problem, not even really solve a problem, but should be about something you're interested in, genuinely like curious to learn about something you haven't worked with before, or so on.
Got it. And there's a question below it, and it says, since you have experience with both 4-month internships and longer internships, which one would you say is more beneficial?
For sure. So I have a strong opinion on this one, and I definitely prefer the longer internships. Uh, like going back to the Ericsson internship, which was 4 months long, I feel like at the end of the 4 months, I finally had an understanding of what the project was and what it is that we were really doing. And I got to know my team members, and I was comfortable asking them more questions. But then as soon as the 4 months came by, um, it was time to leave. So, that was a sort of sad experience because I couldn't get to work on the thing I spent so long understanding. But right now, I'm working in a longer role. So I've been at this company for 6 months now. And yeah, I've been able to contribute more meaningfully. And now that I understand the things we're working on, how the systems are connected, what our team's role is in the bigger picture of the organization. So, yeah, longer roles are definitely what I enjoy most.
Yeah, and even though I've only worked summer internships myself, like all my friends, they told me the longer ones are like a bit better, a bit more beneficial, just because the time frame is so long that you have more to do. I think, and you can essentially make a bigger impact on the company, even though it might be like a percent or two, but you can still kind of see it. The next question is, do you know any good resources to get some constructive criticism on your current project slash resume?
Yeah. So I would not ask uh, constructive criticism from people you know, so family or friends. They would usually sugarcoat things way too much for you to make any reasonable impact. Uh, to start, I would say AI just to get the surface level criticism, but then I would make sure you reach out to someone with a bit more experience. On my LinkedIn, I've had some people message me like, "Hey, can you just look at my resume?" And I'm happy to do that. Like, it doesn't take long, so make sure you try to reach out to people who are in the position you want to be in. So if you want to be at a certain company, find developers at that company. You won't get a response 100% of the times, but uh, make sure you try. It doesn't take that long, and people are really willing to help. And even like the GDSC team, they have some really experienced and great people there who are willing to help. So I believe talking to someone you don't know so that they can give you an objective answer is really important there.
Yeah, that's a good answer, and I kind of want to add to that too. You can obviously ask seniors, you can ask professors, you can ask TAs. If they have time, they definitely will review your project or resume. I believe UTM does have like a resource for resume critiques. You can look into that online. You can obviously watch YouTube videos and sort of like get the general advice and obviously analyze your own stuff. You can go online and post it on online forums. Random people might give you some feedback and anything else. You can obviously ask classmates. Never hurts to ask anybody to look at your project and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, you're at university. I guess like all the tools are here. So just make use of it. The next question is, can you share more specific tips on networking with people and where to start? That's a great question. And Ishan, you can answer that first. I'll answer that later.
Yeah, for sure. So uh, hackathons again are a great way to meet new people. So that can be students or sponsors as well. So the one thing with hackathons is I would recommend teaming up with people not from your school or people who you don't know. That way you get to it's sort of the ripple effect. You get to meet their friends that are there as well. So you talk to more people, which is a good way. And in hackathons, you have a common ground. So you can talk about more common things. But other than that, conferences are a good way. I believe UofT recently had an AI conference, which was really nice to talk to different people. And other than that, I would say something that's worked for me personally is just cold DMing people on LinkedIn. So again, people who are where you want to be, just ask them for like a 15-minute chat and make sure you have questions prepared. And I've talked to people in so many companies now, and that's just given me a wide variety of people I can talk to. So LinkedIn is definitely the way to go. But personally, I also prefer in-person events. So again, conferences, hackathons. Yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, for me, my answer on that would have to be, I mean, you're at university. I'm assuming almost everyone here is from UTM or UofT. And if you're from a different university, I think the same advice still applies. You have like kind of everything at this university. University is like a big networking hub, and you have all the tools and resources. I mean, obviously classmates, like make try to make friends with people, and obviously be nice to everybody, be polite. You know, goes a far way. Your classmates are obviously going to be a part of your network to a certain degree. Professors will be too, TAs will be too. If you join clubs, people in your club will be a part of your network. And yeah, obviously, clubs, hackathons, events that happen at university or outside of university. You can obviously talk to people and get them into your network. And once, let's say, outside of university, um, I mean, the general advice is like, oh, if you go to this area or this area, there's going to be people you can network with. And I do agree with that, but there's this old quote. It's like you can't change the directions of the wind, but you can adjust your sail to always reach your destination. And by that, it's simply like, just head to the right direction. And if you like, let's say if you want to become a software engineer, and I don't know, you're in a class for something else, head to the right direction, head to events where, software engineering is emphasized, clubs that emphasize software engineering. So essentially, keep your surroundings, I'd say close to your goals would be my advice. I think that goes far away and it's definitely beneficial. Um, the next question is, what do you do when you find yourself struggling with a technical question, both on your own and during an interview?
Yeah, I'll answer the interview part first. So the thing that helps me the most is clarifying the question with the interviewer, uh, sort of sparking a conversation. And during once you start asking these clarifying questions, the interviewer will provide you more details. So the more information you have to work with, I believe that will help you sort of get through your struggles because the struggle is really you don't have the information to go forward. So getting more information is the way during the interview and staying calm, thinking about the data structures, whether any applies here or not, or just to start, just do the brute force way, and then you can move on to optimizing it. The goal really is to have some sort of solution to start with, and then you can focus on optimizing. And when I'm on my own, now my first step has always become to paste the error log to an AI, and it sort of gives me a starting point. But I've seen this like during my work as well. It's a good starting point, but AI is really never able to solve the problem I have because it doesn't have all the context. Like with these large code bases, like AI will never have all the context. So uh, with the starting point that AI gives you, you can sort of do some more research. And once that route is exhausted as well, talking to your senior developer or your mentor, uh, it's really important to talk to them early on and not just keep struggling with the problem for 2 days and then reaching out. Like try out for a reasonable amount of time, depending on the task, and then make sure you reach out to your mentor and they'll be happy to help you out.
That's a great answer. And my answer on that would have to be, I mean, obviously, like, before the interview, make sure you study really hard, know the content in and out, and that's sort of going to build the confidence. But let's say, I mean, if you do struggle on the question, I mean, I've been there too. And what you have to realize is like you shouldn't panic because if you panic under pressure, that's a pretty big, let's say, red flag to the employer. So obviously stay calm under pressure, keep your head high and feet low and stay calm and just think about it, and you don't have like necessarily, I mean, you don't have to get the right answer necessarily. You can explain your steps um in a coherent manner. And I think employers would, if you can't answer the question, I think employers, the second option would be to appreciate your sort of understanding and the way you thought of the answer and your sort of approach to it. So yeah, that's my advice to just, stay calm and if you can't give an answer, just explain your steps and what you're thinking. It's kind of like, on a test when you don't know how to answer a question. So the next best option is to like, just write down whatever you can, what's on your mind and whatnot. So yeah, it's kind of like that. The next question is, when you need to learn something new on the job, especially when there aren't that many tutorials available, how would you go about learning it? That's a great question. Ishan, if you want to go first.
Yeah, for sure. So, uh, since our teams own, like for my current role, our teams owns many services, and there are certain places where there is no documentation, and the best way really is to ask someone who knows in that case. And the one thing I would do, so asking someone who knows is, yeah, that solves the problem for you. But what you want to do once you ask someone is document the process. So that's going to help with two things. Since it's not documented, you don't want to forget what the person said and then 2 days later have the same problem. Or what does this function do? How does this work? So document it. What that will do is help you as well, and it will help someone else who's coming after it and looking at it again. So in that case, the best way really is to talk to someone who's more senior. In that case specifically, I would not recommend AI because I won't have all the context in that case. And specifically for us as well, we are not allowed to paste code into ChatGPT. Again, being a cybersecurity company, we are like our team and company itself is really careful about the information we put into AI, again, for security purposes. So reaching out to someone is really important, and not just reaching out upfront, try to sort of figure things out on your own, try to understand how things fit in, maybe like make a quarter of the puzzle yourself and then ask someone else to fill the rest in.
That's a nice answer. And before I give my own answer on that, please feel free to ask more questions on the chat. We're here for like another 10, 20 minutes, so ask more questions. It's fun to answer them. And yeah, to answer that question, um, um, when there aren't that many, let's say, tutorials or information or guidelines on how to learn stuff, I'll try like going on an incredibly deep search on the internet or books about it. And I'll try to like, squeeze everything I can and kind of combine it into my own learning experience. And that's a tough question when there aren't that many. I mean, you can also reach out to, let's say, professionals in what you're trying to learn, even though they might not help you out. There's no harm in asking them for help or guidance. So yeah, that would be my advice on that. And yeah, please feel free to ask more questions. We've got about
I
10.
have a question for Ishan. So I'm basically graduating after this semester, and I'm going to be probably going into industry. But I'm wondering, what's your kind of maybe I don't know if this is fair to say, but like 5 year plan, if you can even plan that far ahead in this market. Like, are you going to be staying as developer, or are you going to be going more towards product management? What's your I guess goal?
Yeah, for sure. So personally, to me, our team does have a product manager, and I personally don't really like what the role they play. And I think it's really the project manager we have. She was a developer before, and she moved into the product space. So I can answer this for myself. I'm not really interested in the project management space. More like the reason I got into computer science was solving problems, and programming was just a medium to solve these problems. So I'm more interested in continuing as a developer and solving like business problems and converting a problem into and converting that a problem statement into something a solution to the way of code is really the motivation I have that keeps me going. So to answer your question, I think I'll definitely continue with the developer space. And I think the one thing that's going on right now is the takeover by AI. But like personally, I try to use AI so much when there's problems that come up, but it just never works. So like AI is nowhere close from my experience to solving some of the complex challenges we face. So it's more about critically thinking, designing a solution, and that's just really something AI can't do. So yeah.
That's good. Thank you for sharing. And you're right. AI is some people say even 50 years away from replacing like the really complex mathematicians and the likes,
Mhm.
problem solvers like you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. I don't see any more new questions. So Ishan, I'm going to ask you a question. You talked about mentorship being important. Have you personally been mentored and or like has anyone older from your workspace given you advice or some sort of mentorship or no?
Yeah, for sure. So at RBC and at my current role, we are assigned a mentor, and the mentor is really uh, your go-to point for any questions and support. So I was really fortunate to have a really good mentor who helped me onboard uh, during my uh, during my starting, and they would jump on a call with me and sort of explain in detail what our services would do. So I didn't really have the problem of learning something new and someone not being there while I was learning it. So I was really fortunate to have my mentor at work and even at RBC. That I think was a more crucial point in my life than right now because I was in high school and I was sort of figuring things out. So the mentor at RBC, she really helped me through making a LinkedIn account and how I should organize it and so on. So I think these work mentors are really helpful. And if you don't really have one, you should you should try to ask your manager to assign you one as well.
Got it. And yeah, you guys can ask more questions. Please feel free to. I'm gonna ask you one more question just before somebody asks us anything. What do you think are like the most important courses you've taken at university?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start with the earliest course, which is CSC 207. That was building a project with a team. That is definitely a good way to get a project on your resume while working in a team. So you have all the criteria necessary to put that project on your resume because you work with a team, there was a challenge you're solving, and the project you're making has some sort of purpose. And I believe there are certain requirements in that course as well. You have to, or I believe that is in CSC 301, where you have to make sure that it can handle a certain amount of load, so load testing as well. And that course has helped me as well. One course, CSC 209, has helped me way more than I realized because it helped me get comfortable working with shell commands. And I see that these senior developers, they love working in the shell and using these shell commands. And that's been a really rewarding thing to sort of understand what they're doing. Because asking these basic questions would sort of slow down the entire process. So, yep, CSC 209.
Got it. We have a question in the chat if you want to read that through.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation where you were learning something that your mentor didn't know, requiring you to seek out other professionals for answer? So, what are the best ways to find those professionals? Yeah, for sure. So, in a co-op, usually, if your mentor doesn't know something, they would always or they would mostly try to point you to someone who would know the answer. Because in a company, if there's something that exists, so if there's a project that's there or a service, there's someone who wrote the service or someone who really understands the service. So even if your mentor is not the person who built the service or he or she's maintaining the service, they would know the person or at least try to guide you to in the right direction. But other than that, if you're doing something on the side, like a personal project, LinkedIn is the best way. There's so many cold DMs I've sent, and like I would say my response rate is like I would say like 5%. Like for every 100 messages, you get like five responses. And LinkedIn does have like a limit of those like you can't message like premium members. Like you really have to like dig deep and message a lot of people to get a response. But the people who respond back, they're like genuinely interested in like helping you out. So yeah, like LinkedIn is a really nice, it's a really good community. I feel like where it's it's a hit or miss, but the hits you get are really genuine people trying to help you.
And Ishan, I was gonna ask you, how important actually, oh, okay, never mind. How important do you think LinkedIn is? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't like really use it that much. I never really cared about it. I don't think I've updated it in like a long time. Do you think it matters at all, or should I change that bad habit?
Yeah, I feel like in like today's time, like job market especially, LinkedIn is like super important. And like anytime you have something, even like a small achievement, you should really add it to LinkedIn, if not make a post about it. Uh, it does really contribute to the social credibility you have about your online presence and whatnot. So having a good headshot there and talking about your experiences. Same goes for your website. I feel like it's almost required to have a website. So make sure you update that.
Got it, got it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you guys can ask any last second questions you want. We've got a couple minutes left.
Yeah, while there people are typing their questions, I guess. I've seen recruiters jump on my profile like during recruiting season. I have my LinkedIn on my resume. I believe that that is also a really good thing to add on your resume, as it's a like it should be a complement to your resume, right? So it's a really good idea to put it there. And I have seen recruiters jump on my LinkedIn, and linked recruiters are usually the first people to request the connection. So like it just shows that they were on my profile and they actually want to connect. So
Yeah, no, that's a great point about it being complementary, 'cause I've never seen it like that at all. I saw them as two separate things. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. It should complement. I'm definitely gonna do that after this call.
yeah, awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I'll add you on LinkedIn. I'll check that website out. Any other questions? Anything at all? Ishan, yeah, if you see that question, it's a bit long. If you want to read that through.
What immediate plan would you recommend for someone who graduated already? I've been doing some personal projects and recently went to the hackathon. Seems pretty doomed. Only recently I did get lucky break and getting capo on assessment, but I'm scared of even starting it. Yep. So I guess going back like, to the start, the fear will go away once you are prepared. So well, the fear is just of the unknown, right? Like I feel like Capital One is a big company, so their online assessment questions should be easily available online as well. So even if not the exact same question, you'll sort of think about it as like past tests. Once you do the past tests, you sort of have an idea of the sort of questions the company is going to ask you. There's usually companies usually try to keep their questions in a similar domain. So focusing on that. I believe the Gen AI Genesis Hackathon was in person or on, no, it was online, I believe. And online hackathons, I'm a bit reluctant to doing online hackathons as the opportunities you get in person are quite different. Like I mentioned, oh nice, both in person and online. Sweet. So yeah, like with the in-person hackathon, you could always like go up to like a sponsor booth and start talking with them, like not straight up about like getting internships, but being genuinely curious and adding them on LinkedIn, and then after you build a sort of relationship, then ask them for yeah, keep preparing, and once you get over the nerves, make sure to do it with a calm mindset.
Got it. And yeah, I think hey, Ishan, I don't know how long you want to stay, but
Yeah, I could stay.
yeah, sure. Yeah, if you guys have like any last second questions, go for it. I went through two, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's definitely a tip. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, yeah. No, I was just gonna say, it's always good to get your foot in your foot stepped in somewhere, yeah, just always start the project. I mean, and eventually, when once you start, and you'll figure out, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? It's like a learning curve. So yeah, like just start. Doesn't matter if you don't know how to do it. Just go for it. Try to learn the process and whatnot. And adding back to Michael's question, I'd say like try to understand like where your fear is coming from of not starting it. Is it like the lack of preparation? Is it like, I don't know, not knowing the content in and out? And so yeah, sort of like try to tackle that fear, and once you do that, start the assessment. And yeah, and I do wish the best for you. Hopefully, you get the job and whatnot. And I do wish the best for everyone here, everyone that was in this call. It feels like I'm rusty and skills. Hmm. Well, I'd say, how would you respond to that, Ishan? If you had the latest comment, I'd say like, I guess just get your foot back in the game, start practicing again.
Yeah, practice is the way to go for this one because yeah, once you like even me right now, like my job currently doesn't have like DSA questions or like algorithmic questions. So if you could give me like an online assessment right now, I would not be prepared. Uh, just like doing the practice questions is really the way to go. Yep, CSC 209, all the C code and going away from memory. And I feel like that's like generally like the that's what we sort of signed up for, right? Like software development, like sort of doing all this continuous learning. Like I feel like even like my senior developers like at my team, like they probably don't they probably don't know how to rotate a binary tree like on the top of their head, right? So it's always preparing beforehand for the moment.
All right, Ishan, I think should we call it quits?
Yep. If
All right,
everyone is
yeah.
good to know.
Yeah, yeah. I
Thank
just
you,
want to say,
everyone.
yeah, thank you so much, man. I absolutely appreciate you spending your time here to be with me. And I appreciate the pragmatic advice that given us. And hopefully, everyone here, you guys can squeeze some information out of it. And I hope and pray that all of you guys get, full-time employments or internships and whatnot. I wish the best for all of you guys. So just keep working hard, and yeah, hopefully the hard work pays off.
Yeah, thanks for the questions, guys, too. Thank you.